Hey everybody, how you doing? Hope everybody's having a great day. Hello from Nashville. This is our vintage guitar vibes with Dr. Mike in Nashville, and where we just we pull out an old guitar and talk about it, why they're special, while they're somewhere not special, and just a little history of them, and supply a little sound about the guitar and why they do what they do. This particular guitar that I'm holding right here is truly one of my favorites I've ever had. This is a Martin D28 made in 1946. So immediate post-war guitar made by Martin, and there's something kind of interesting that I've spoken with a bunch of my Nashville buddies about down here on why guitars made in 1946 and even into early 47 seem to have some kind of little extra magic going on. And I have to say that I think that because of the elation and the happiness of a world war ending and everybody being so joyful and happy, that there was joy and happiness that went into a lot of these instruments. I mean, there's both from Gibson and from Martin, they're some of the best guitars that I've ever played. They just have a magic that some years just don't. I mean, it's maybe just me, but there's some other guys in town here that have guitars from that year, and they say the same thing. So I'll put that out there for what it's worth. This is a 1946 Martin. It was a transitional year for Martin as well. There's a thing called a herringbone, which is kind of a legendary thing within the Martin community, where it's this trim that goes around the front of the guitar, and it's called a herringbone trim. Now that herringbone trim started way back in 1934, and this herringbone here was a German-sourced material. So as a result, by early 1947, they completely ran out of this trim. So they stopped making herringbone trim. So this is one of the last full years of a herringbone trim, which kind of elevates these guitars into another category of having herringbone trim. Do they sound vastly different from 47s and some 48s? Not really, same building materials, but just a little panache for having the herringbone trim. Wow, right? As you can see here, this is also phenomenal Brazilian rosewood, back and sides, as you can see, figured Brazilian rosewood with a zipper stripe down the middle, which again dates it into the herringbone era as well. These guitars just have a phenomenal tone, obviously, to them, and sustain. This guitar happens to be an untouched, extremely rare, untouched guitar from that year. It hasn't had a neck reset. There's nothing that's been done to this guitar that you would typically have to do to guitars of this age. So for whatever reason, this guitar has made it through that time without modifications. No neck set, no refret, nothing. It's completely original and untouched, which is highly unusual. So anyway, there's that. The top is a Sitka spruce. Earlier D28s were made with a Adirondack spruce, which is a harder type of red spruce. Martin ran out of good Adirondack in 1945, and as a result started to incorporate Sitka, very straight grain, which means the grains run very straight on the guitar, which a lot of people believe that that allows more resonance within the wood characteristics. I happen to agree. These very straight grains on this Sitka, it's a very high-grade Sitka. It's a softer wood, so a lot of people feel that some of these Sitka guitars have a little bit less edgier sound than the Adirondack. I agree. I call this maybe more musical than the Adirondack. The Adirondack, which I have a few from earlier, are very strong, forceful guitars, which in a bluegrass situation, very necessary and desirable. However, in a singer-songwriter application, maybe not. The Sitka works phenomenal. That's why I like to record with this guitar a lot when I'm doing singer-songwriter things, because it's so musical. So it's a Sitka top, which also notice has aged into a deeper honey gold tone than a lot of the Adirondacks do. It's just what it's the type of wood. And then it's got the original tortoise guard here, which the D28s has. And again, this one is so phenomenal because it hasn't, a lot of times these pick guards will bubble up or lose their grip and you have to glue them back down. This one is phenomenal. It's just all original. We go up in here, we have a very large C mahogany neck on this with an ebony fingerboard. One thing that also changed in 1946 was they used to have, on the D28s, there were called diamonds and squares on the fingerboard, which were kind of like snowflakes. Some people call them snowflakes, diamonds and squares. 1946, because of a cost-cutting effort at Martin, they went to putting dots in. So you'll see, even in late 45, I've seen a couple that had dots in the neck, and from there on, they kind of used dots until there were a lot of reissues that came out, and they went back to using the diamonds and squares. But so this has got the dots on there. On the peg head, we have a Brazilian rosewood overlay on the mahogany, and we have the original Waverly open back tuners that they used at the time up and through here. And as you can see, this neck has got just much more meat to it, much more depth than a lot of the D28s, a lot of the Martins had coming in through the early 40s. And it's also got what's called a T-bar reinforcement truss rod, which means that inside the neck here is a steel rod versus in late 42 into 43 and 44, they use an ebony rod, which again, because of the war, all steel was being used to produce war material. So they had to use ebony, which lightened the guitar up. This guitar has got some weight to it, but I think that lends to its musicality and to its balance. Also the bracing. Underneath the top, back in the early 30s and into 1944 and very early 45, only a couple that I've seen, they used scallop bracing. In this guitar, they stopped using scallop bracing to make the guitar stronger so they wouldn't have as many warranty issues. Okay, so they use a tapered brace. That gives the guitar a little more beef, a little more of that tenacity that you look sometimes for the D28. So it's got a tapered brace, not scalloped. So that's a little thing that you'll see inside the guitar when you use a mirror inside and you can take a peek at it. So that's kind of where these guitars get a lot of their power, is from that. The binding all around the guitar here, this white around here, is ivoryed. It's not ivory. Some people believe that's ivory. Martin stopped using ivory in 1919 for obvious reasons. Good grief. So this is an ivoryed material that they had been using since 1919. So it's very strong, very, very compliant, and it just holds up really, really super well. Inside the guitar, where the strings come through, you have a maple bridge plate, and you also have an ebony bridge, which is a strong wood back here for the bridge, and like I said, an ebony fingerboard to go along with that. So you've got ebony both on the board and on the bridge. And also the X brace on these is what's called rear shifted, which means that the X brace, if you put your finger in here, is back here a little bit further to again stabilize the guitar top, because they were having some issues with movement in the bridge causing warranty issues. So I've got some of the Martins from 1935, 1937, and early 38, where the bracing here is moved up. It's called a forward shift. So this bracing on this guitar is what's called a rear shifted. So you'll see a lot of people talk about, they'll ask you, is it a forward shifted herringbone or a rear shifted herringbone? This 1946 is a rear shifted, and as a result it has that particular tone as well. The finish on this guitar obviously is all original. It's never been touched. And you can see that from the graining and how the guitar presents itself. And on the back, this guitar is just in amazing condition, but even more importantly, it has an amazing tone that's so balanced and the sustain is phenomenal. This one just works. Sometimes you don't know why you have great ones or just good ones. I've never played a bad one from this era, but this one is phenomenal. So it's got tone, it's got sustain. It's an all original guitar, so it is just, I feel very fortunate to be able to play this guitar every time I do. And yeah, so there you have a 1946 D28 Herringbone Martin Magic guitar. And I hope you get to find one someday. I hope you get to play it. And we'll see you on down the road. Thanks for tuning in, and keep playing. Keep playing those old ones especially. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks from Nashville. Bye-bye.